Rick Neuheisel was at the Rose Bowl. The former college coach, now working for CBS, leads us off 2018. Coach, thanks for joining us. Welcome to the program. How was last night's atmosphere? Well,
I know I'm biased with the granddaddy of them all, Dan, and Happy New Year to you and your boys. But I may have watched one of the best college football games of all time. Given the magnitude of the moment, given the stage, and given the first ever overtime game in Rose Bowl history, and winner going on to play for the national championship, it was everything you could ever have wanted to take in on a January 1st college football event. It was awesome football.
Give me the logic here with what Oklahoma was doing at the end with their play calling, that they weren't letting or relying on Baker Mayfield to make plays. Why?
Yeah, it was strange. It was absolutely strange to see what was transpiring there, to get in overtime and hand off 3 times and take the ball out of the Heisman Trophy winner's hands, and then in the second overtime, sit there and look like you're going to go for it on 4th down again with the best player in college football standing there ready to make a play for you. But, given what was going on, given all that was transpiring, given the amount of experience that Lincoln Riley's had, I guess I understand. I really do understand. But if you could go back and play rewind, I think you'd make some different decisions.
What did you take away from that game with Baker Mayfield?
I thought it was not his best. 23 of 35, certainly in the beginning of the game when Georgia was playing more zone, he was taking advantage. When they jumped into some more man in the second half, it complicated things for him. And obviously the length of Georgia's pass rush also made him take some moments where he lost vision on the field. It was not vintage Mayfield, but certainly when you look at the numbers, 54-48, you got to say somebody was doing some good things on offense.
Okay, but if you look at him as we move this forward, as we love to do, with these quarterbacks, those who played in bowl games, Josh Rosen didn't, but handicap these 4 and how you think the NFL will assess them.
I think coming out of it, and Darnold didn't win, but I thought Darnold played pretty darn heroically given the pass rush that was after him on every down basis. I think Darnold and Rosen are right there, and it's going to be determined by the brass that has those early choices. I think, Rosen's concussion history is going to probably weigh against him. So I'm going to lean Darnold will go 1, Rosen will go 2. I think Allen probably sits there and gets somebody to just fall in love with him because of the Carson Wentz and Craig Bowl relationship, and he's like this guy. I think that's 3. And Baker slides to the middle to late first round now with this game under his belt.
Do you really believe Josh Rosen doesn't want to play for Cleveland?
I really believe that he's smart enough to be listening to people and blah, blah, blah. But I think somebody is let me say this. I think Josh Rosen's going to put his hat in and say he's all in. I think he's going to realize, he can't sit and play that kind of game.
Well, but you know this kid, like the personality, and you wondered a couple of weeks ago, does he really, how much does he really want this? That when you're down, you're playing for a losing team, is it there? Is he going to have it deep within him? Does it sound like that would be something he would say? Of all of these quarterbacks, we thought Rosen would be the one guy who might say something like that I just don't want to play for that organization.
Like I said, he's different than most kids that are entering an NFL draft, given his background, given the environment that he grew up in with wealth and money was not ever really important to him. So these decisions for him, I think, are going to be a bit more than just financial. But I do believe at day's end, he's just going to say, "Hey, look, I just want to play. I want to go and become part of an organization, say all the same things that all the other guys are going to say."
Yeah.
The question is, are they going to trust him?
He's Rick Neuheisel, CBS college football analyst, joining us Continental Tire Coach's Corner. Baker Mayfield's personality, the pros and cons on how the NFL will look at this. Is that personality a positive or a negative to you?
I think it will be perceived positively because somebody who's going to take him is going to say, I want that fire. I can always calm the fire by, dousing it, maybe the flames somewhat. And it's better to do that than trying to artificially cajole and stoke a fire. This guy burns. He's got, as he told me in New York, got a boulder on his shoulder, not a chip. I think the team that decides Baker Mayfield's their next guy is going to be excited about that.
Alabama's defense, is Georgia better equipped to attack it, or would Oklahoma have been better equipped?
I think Oklahoma would have been better equipped. Alabama will play against this, 1-2 punch of Chubb and Michelle better than anybody can play it. Maybe Clemson would have done that as well. But Alabama looked back to full speed on defense last night, holding Clemson to 181 yards.
Yeah.
That was vintage Crimson Tide football. And given what Georgia likes to do, and I know they do it really well with both Michelle and Chubb averaging more than 10 yards a carry yesterday. I just think Alabama's best suited to handle that kind of 1-2 punch.
I don't normally look at this, with a conspiracy theorist angle, but I can't help but think Alabama being favored last night against Clemson, they'll be favored probably against Georgia. How can you assess this if you're the committee and say they're the fourth best team in the country when everybody else looks at them differently?
Well, you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, it comes down to a bit of what we've been used to over the BCS era, right? If you lose late, you have to go to the end of the line. Yeah. And fortunately, Alabama, there were enough people in the room that said, hey, look, if they just lost to Auburn at Auburn, and everybody believed Auburn was a top team in the country at the time. And you look at Ohio State, I know they were the Big Ten champs, and now we have this bowl resume from the Big Ten that had they had that, probably Alabama wouldn't have made it. But the bottom line is they did have that Iowa loss to ponder by the Buckeyes. And so fortunately for Alabama, there was enough to keep them in the deal. But the truth of the matter is they all knew, and especially the coaches in that room knew, Alabama was as good a football team as there was. They were just on, some bald tires at the season's end.
Yeah, I still think Ohio State's one of the top four teams. Oklahoma in there as well. The Central Florida win against Auburn, I hope people noticed it, because that's one of those you go, oh, by the way, they just beat Auburn. What did you take away from Central Florida this year?
Well, it was a remarkable story, and somewhere down the line, I hope we remember what makes March Madness so special is that Cinderella story. And, I go back a couple years when Tom Herman and Greg Ward Jr. at Houston, kind of shocked the world by beating Florida State, and starting the next season by beating Oklahoma, and, having big wins along the way as a group of five team taking on the big, mighty Power Five. I would love to see the group of five choice by the committee always be a part of a playoff, and hopefully somewhere down the road we can get that done.
What do you mean by that? Are you?
I mean, we got to add more teams.
But how many? How many do we have? Because
my perfect scenario, Dan, would be 12. I think we have such a cross section of what we do for a football season and what makes economic sense in all these athletic departments. I would like to see all the Power Five teams be able to put two teams in. You decide as a conference how many conference games you want to play. You decide what works best for you in determining who your best two teams are. But two teams in, that would give us 10. A group of five representative, and this year it would have been a UCF, and then a at-large. And we'll have the top four teams, as determined by the committee. They get a bye. The next 8 play. We can find a way to do away with the conference championship games, let the conferences determine how they're going to determine their champions in another way, but take away that 13th game so that we can have it be in a quarterfinal type of setting. And away we go. How much would you like to see Wisconsin play again? How much would you like to see Ohio State play again? Penn State's victory over Washington was spectacular. Love to see that one more game. And we're just warming up right now. I mean, we saw some great football. We're going to be excited about what happens in Atlanta next Monday, but ultimately, I think some more football would be fun to watch.
Yeah, I think we had the playoffs in the final month of the regular season, Rick. I just think that if you go to 12, then what stops you from going to 14 or 16 or 18? That's what makes me nervous. The 4 is not perfect. It's better than the BCS. If you expand to 6, okay, but I get nervous that, we never stop. It's like once you open the door, then that's it. We're done. March Madness is diluted. If you don't make March Madness, you should be fired. You should.
Well, you make some good points. I'm not arguing wholly. And if we could be, you and I could sit down and do the schedule in the last month, the November portion of the season, and we could put the matchups together on the field, I would agree. But when Alabama's playing Mercer in November, and we have those kind of games as calculated scheduling decisions so that I can put myself in best position, then I sit there and I say, okay, why isn't the Pac-10 able to do that or the Pac-12 able to do that? And the reason they're not able to do that is they can't financially afford to pay $1.5 million, $1.8 million to a Mercer to come and play. They have to make different kinds of decisions. And when that's the case, now we've got a little bit of an unfair playing field, which has always been the case in college football.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, why can't we make it a little bit more fair so that all portions of the country feel some measure of representation?
Always great to talk to you. Thank you, Rick. We appreciate it.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Rick. That's Rick Neuheisel, CBS college football analyst, Continental Tire, Coach's Corner. From sun to rain to snow and everything in between, Continental Tire is engineered tire for what you do. Extraordinary performance, reliability, putting confidence into driving. For more information and the location of a dealer near you, visit ContinentalTire.com. Continental Tire for what you do.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.